In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the STPAmaster Lite for steps 1 and 2 of the STPA analysis. For this tutorial, I'm going to use example from the STPA handbook, specifically the automotive auto-hold system available in figure BA7. And the STPA starts with definition of analysis purpose, so going for the tab, I would start by defining my system level losses, clicking on the red Add button here. If this is the first time you are using STPAmaster Lite, you will be prompted to authorize running the scripts within the tool. For that, just click OK, log in with your Google account, and allow the scripts. Then you would need to click again on the red Add button, which will pop up a dialog where you can define your system level losses. My analysis includes two of them, first of which is loss of human life, or injuries or serious injuries to people. Then I have two options, either to stop the work for now and just click save, or continue straight ahead defining more losses. That's my case, so I would click save and add another. And my second loss would be damage to the vehicle, or objects outside the vehicle. This time I want to finish, so I would just click the save button. And now you see that in my tool there are two losses identified. Both the IDs were automatically generated. So the gray highlighted field, as you may have noticed, are those that are going to be automatically filled by the tool. The white ones include the information provided by the user. If I decide, I can continue definition of the losses, but by again clicking on the Add button, the tool will resume the work. I can also manually edit the text if I did some typos, for example. I want to update the text of the previously identified losses. I can even update the automatically generated information, like the loss IDs. Although we do not recommend doing that, it's better to follow the dialogues, which will make sure that you don't have any inconsistencies in your analysis later. Now I would like to continue with defining the system level hazards. So again, clicking on the red Add button, a dialog shows, which allows me defining the system level hazards. Again, I will have two of them. First of which is a vehicle does not maintain safe distance from nearby objects. And now I am asked to provide a reference by saying which of the previously identified losses this hazard relates to. You can select none, one of these, or both. My case is selecting both of these. And just like in the previous window, I have the option to save or save and add another. I would like to add one more, which is the vehicle enters an unsafe area region. And again, this one would be, I have a typo in here, let's keep it like that, just for the example. So selecting again both of the hazards, and the last thing which will appear from the moment when your analysis includes at least one already identified hazard is this parent drop-down dialog, from which you can select any of the previously identified hazards. I already identified H1, so by selecting the H1, I would indicate that the newly added hazard is going to be a refinement of the previously added hazards. In that case, the hazard would be listed as hazard H1.1. That's not the case. I want to have it as H2 as a standalone system level hazards. In such case, I keep the parent drop-down unselected, drop-down dialog unselected. This time I would like to finish the work, so I would just click save, and again the analysis would list two of these hazards at the automatically identified IDs and loss references. I did the typo in here, so as you can see I can simply go in here and manually edit if I decide. The last step is to define system level constraints. So again, clicking on the add button, I would get to the dialog where I can define those. First would be the system level constraint for the first hazard, which would be vehicle must maintain safe distance from nearby objects. So I would click that this is a safety constraint for the first hazard. Now let's define a safety constraint for the second one, which would be vehicle must avoid unsafe area region. In that case, I click the second one. Note that this dialog does not restrict me from the type of system level constraint I want to add. For both of the hazards so far, I have included a constraint calling for prevention of their occurrence, but I'm free to add also the other type, which would call for a certain action to be taken in the case the hazard occurs. So I would be adding one more, just an example for H2, which would sound: if the vehicle enters an unsafe area or region, then say immediate action should be taken to prevent its further movement. And again, I would be selecting hazard H2. Since this is the last system level constraint, I click just the save button to interrupt the workflow. And the last thing that I can do on this tab is to validate my analysis by clicking the button. A sidebar would appear with the error messages. So this time I'm getting a message, no issues detected, which means that the analysis is correct so far. But the validation function in general will check for consistency and traceability issues. For example, if all the safety constraints I have listed would be just referencing one of the hazards, let's try to do that. Let's change hazard reference for the first one to H2. Then this is an apparent error because I have a hazard H1, which is not addressed by any of the system level constraints. In that case, rerunning the validation would identify this mistake, saying that the system level hazard H1 is not referenced by any system level constraint, and also red highlighting the ID of the respective hazard which needs to be checked. So if I do the check, then I would probably realize my mistake and correct it by changing back the hazard reference. If I want to make sure that my correction was correct, then I would rerun the validation. In that case, the previous no issues detected message appears and the red highlight of the respective system level hazard disappears. Now we can continue with the safety control structure. Second step of STPA calls for drawing safety control structure. Of course, the Google spreadsheets are not well designed to draw a safety control structure. For that, you would be better to using an external diagramming editor. In my case, I'm using the Y editor from YWorks, which you can see now. And here I have my safety control structure, basically redrawn from the STPA handbook. As you can see, there are controllers, control processes. It looks the same except for some details that you need to follow if you want to have the automatic import of your safety control structure into the tool correct. First thing to note is that you should be using different types of lines for control action, feedbacks, and other types of interactions, specifically solid lines for control actions and dashed lines for feedbacks. If you're going to use other types of interactions like I have in here, sort of a physical interactions between the environment and the physical vehicle, then you can use any other type of line than the solid and dashed lines. So I'm using a dotted line in this example. The tool, when importing such a safety control structure, would ignore this type of interactions and just import the control actions and feedbacks. Next to note is that you can list multiple control actions and feedbacks with a single arrow, like I have in here. So you can have four control actions on with one line going from control to control process, but they need to be all lines separated. If you would have a long label for a single control action, then definitely keep it on one line, because separating it or wrapping the text would cause the tool to recognize that control action to be two separate control actions. When I finish drawing my safety control structure, I would save the diagram as a source code, in this case as a .graphml, and upload the file to my Google Drive. I did so I have my folder with two files. One of them is the STPAmaster Lite with my analysis. The other one is the source file from the Y-editor, .graphml. Now I need to get the link for the file, so I would right-click, share, and copy the link. You don't need to share this with anyone, it just needs to be accessible within your Google Drive. And then going back to my STPAmaster Lite and the STP analysis, I would click on Import Safety Control Structure and simply copy the link into the dialog that will show. So I just put the link inside and click OK. The script will run and automatically import the information from the safety control structure. And note that it will automatically switch the tool to step 3 of the STP analysis, identification of unsafe control actions. I will go now back to show you how it looks on the second tab. So we will see gray highlighted cells that include the information about controllers, control actions, and control processes that were imported, and part of that information is then also copied into the third tab for step 3 of the STPA. If you want to see the safety control structure directly within the tool, you can do so by dropping an image in here, basically clicking on the cell and going into the Google Spreadsheet menu, insert image, and insert image over cells. We do recommend inserting over cells option because that will insert your safety control structure properly scaled. So I would approach my computer, and this time I would be using export image file from my diagramming editor, which is a PNG file. By opening that, the safety control structure appears directly in my STPA tool, properly scaled. Anytime you import the safety control structure within the STPAmaster Lite, the tool would delete any information that is included in the step 3 and step 4. This is to prevent possible mixing of an older analysis with a new one. In case you would like to update your safety control structure with just the minor changes during the analysis, for whatever reason, adding a new control action or adding a new control loop into it, it is thus recommended not to import a new safety control structure into the tool, but instead modify the information in the gray highlighted field respectively. So let's imagine that we realize during the analysis at later stages that I'm missing one control action here. Release brake, for example, from the driver to the physical vehicle. Then I would simply go in here, add one more row in here. So I would be editing this as any other spreadsheet, and specify that I want to have a release brake control action in here going from the driver to the physical vehicle. If I do this modification, note that I need to be consistent and do the same modification also on tab 3, which includes the same information except for the control processes. So again, I would need to go in here, merge this, say that the driver also can provide a release brake control action, and to have this consistent, I would copy also these not available cells from below. As you can see, the tool allows certain flexibility also in here, so it's not really restrictive by the way you provide information about your safety control structure. So you can do these iterations when you realize some minor changes need to be done. If you want to see how to continue the analysis with the step 3 of the STPA, watch the next video.